Okay.
Here, here.
We're going to bring another friend of ours on the show here. We're going to be, he's a good friend in the libertarian movement, wonderful guy all the way around, and he is the former chair of the Boston Tea Party, and he is currently the website administrator. Very good friend of mine, deserved a lot of, I've met him a couple of years ago. Wonderful guy. Please welcome Doug Gaking. Doug, are you with us?
Yeah.
Hey, how's it going, Doug?
It's going well, thanks.
Great. Well, Doug, you know, a lot of things are going on in the Boston Tea Party, as you're probably well aware of. We just concluded a convention. By the way, Mike, congratulations. You are a candidate for at-large seat. I hope you win. And yeah, and you know, there's a lot of bullshit to happen even prior to all this. And I think it's important that we put our minds together on this, because I do want to play a clip before you go, Doug, at some point, what Neil Kieran Stevenson said about the Boston Tea Party and some of the bullshit that was going on. But apparently there was some controversy involving a runoff election. Right now we're currently having an at-large election, but that was only because, you know, there was this big brouhaha over keeping the seat unfilled. Can you give us an idea? Because I know what happened, but for those people out there who are not aware of what happened, can you tell us and them exactly what went down and why we're in this rut that we're in at this point?
Sure. This actually goes back to like 2008, because that was when we had our last election, and around that time there was a software update to Drupal, which is the software we run the National Party website with, and it caused us not to be able to do our elections by approval voting anymore, which is how we were doing our elections, and that's how our bylaws call for our elections to be handled. And it's a good system because it gives minorities a bigger voice in the party, because ideally everybody votes by approval rather than just picking one candidate, so that whoever's approved of by the largest number of people wins. So it's a good system, but we ran into that problem with the software not cooperating with it anymore. And we had no trouble handling that in the 2008 convention. We managed to find a way to kind of get around it, and it worked fine. But we used the same system in this election, and it didn't work out the right way, because we had a tie for the final seat on the committee. And then we tried to set up a runoff, and none of the above won the runoff, which tells you all you need to know about those bottom three candidates that we had running. So then we had this controversy where our founder of the party, Tom Knapp, brought up a bylaws conflict that was kind of created by an inconsistency in the original bylaws that we hadn't caught, about whether or not that seat could be left vacant.
Meaning NOTA applies only to the national officers, but doesn't strangely apply to the at-large members.
Mm-hmm. And so at that point, he raised an appeal to the National Committee's decision not to reopen the election a third time. The committee had apparently decided, you know, if none of the conditions have changed, there's no point in reopening the election for this seat. Let's just leave it open for now, which has been done before. That happened in 2009. So that was what the committee was going to do. He appealed their non-action, and he lost the appeal, at which point he kind of threatened the party, and the chair was going to try to remove his vote in the poll, which I pointed out to him would have constituted election fraud. So I suggested, let's just compromise on this. Let's go ahead and have the National Committee move to open nominations and second.
And I recall Daryl
second the nomination. Yeah, and Daryl recognized that he wasn't going to do the right thing by doing it that way. So he went, and I believe he moved to open the new election, and then or to open nominations, and I believe you seconded, Todd, if I remember correctly. And so now we have this election going, and the candidates are myself. I jumped into the running, and Mike Shanklin, who's on the air with us too, and Neil Kiernan, who you've already talked about.
Right. And I guess right now what we're seeing is that Neil Kiernan Stevenson, who is this ringleader of the Resource-Based Economy Caucus, he basically is trying to bring the members of the Venus Project. And Mike, you know about the Venus Project because you and James covered it.
Yeah, you could.
And you know exactly how fucked up these people are. I mean, let's familiarize ourselves with these people. Basically, they believe that, we should just get rid of government but replace it with a computer and get rid of money while we're at it, but everything must be owned equally, which is abolish private property rights.
Right.
I mean,
let me go.
Go ahead.
Let me go into my little spiel. You ready for this? I'm telling you, I did a 2-hour show on this, so I'm pretty prepared for the idea of the Venus Project. I did watch Guys 2 Addendums, the Venus Project movie, and I got to say, the first thing I took away from it, and here's a progression, okay? You guys follow me for the next minute, and you'll appreciate it. So what we started with was, I started turning it on, and they started ranting about the Federal Reserve, and I was really appreciative of that. Obviously, the Federal Reserve's a big fault. And I'm not a big fan, and when I say this, I don't really want to put a negative or positive emphasis on this, but when I talk about the monetary supply, you have what's called the multiplier effect, okay? The multiplier effect is bad in some situations, but in other situations, when it's all completely voluntary and there's no force or violence used in the system, there's nothing wrong with people, lending the money back out, and it happens to go 9 times around simply because the Federal Reserve rate is at 10% right now. The federal government sets the reserve for the banks. Somebody deposits $1,000 into a bank. Well, the bank has to hold on to 10% of that, or $100, and they can loan the other $900 out. That $900 goes out to somebody else who loans the money, and then they spend it somewhere. That money goes back into the system. So you can see how over time it multiplies into 9 times. Well, the first thing I took away from the Venus Project was the fact they tried to crucify not only the multiplier effect, but profits as well. Their whole strike on profits is nullified by the simple fact that profits are not always a negative connotation. What I mean by that is the fact that profits are a signal to the market. Okay, what they really say is, listen, when you have high profits in one industry, what you need is more competition. You need more investors to come in here and invest into this one sector. Well, or in some cases, when you have less profits, it means, we need to suck money back out, or take money away from this investment. Obviously, it's not a place where the consumer drives the demand, and that's what's key here. Okay, so the first thing I took away from this movie is the fact that they tried to completely hate on monetary systems as a whole, where I see the problem being a monopoly control of currency by central banks, when they can manipulate the money supply, when they can inflate and devalue currency and basically ruin the middle class. That's the problem we need to face. Not the fact that people have medium of exchanges. Medium of exchanges, when you have a medium of exchange, any currency piece out there that's created by somebody, and you would have this in a voluntary system as well. And this is what the people of the Venus Project don't understand, is that you would have a monetary system. You're always going to, because scarcity is prevalent in society. Scarcity basically rules, and scarcity is even prevalent in time. Now, I just want to point this fact out. I got a lot to say here, Tom, so I appreciate the time you're to let me have on the show. But scarcity itself is never going to be eradicated. I mean, there's no way you can eradicate scarcity of any good or service, not even of time. Even Bill Gates, the richest man in the world, has scarcity of his time. He has to fight around his schedule. It's not like he can have more unlimited time. Such thing as unlimited time. There's no such thing as any unlimited good or service. Everything that's created, even the beer we drink, the house we live in, it was produced by another human, whether voluntarily or not, is a different story. But what we have to take away from this is the fact that the Venus Project completely obliterates any idea of medium exchange. It wants to eliminate voluntary transactions. Now, they might not see this as the fact. You're right, and they might not see it as the fact that they want to eliminate voluntary transactions, but that's the underlying truth of the problem. Now, hold on. That's just the first out of 3 parts I have with this video, okay? So they first off, starting off, ranting about monetary policy in the Federal Reserve, which I agree with on a whole. About 80 to 90% of that I do agree with. But then at the beginning of this video, they also talked about how technology was bad, how outsourcing is the worst thing in the world, how we need to have protectionist government barriers here and there, even though they don't want law. It's kind of hypocritical of their own cause. But let me say this in the end, okay? So we take a step to phase 2. We saw phase 1, Federal Reserve ran against the government. So they're right. When they ran against the government and the quasi-public, quasi-private Federal Reserve System, they're absolutely correct. Now we take the next phase, and really you can connect phase 2 and 3 together, and you'll see what I'm talking about here in a second, okay? So they go to phase 2 and they say, well, here in this Venus project, we're just going to build all of this technology. Well, here's number 2. Where in the hell are they going to come up with the ability to build all this stuff without humans? It's almost impossible. And to have any human do something, you have to have an incentive. To have the incentive, you have to have a monetary system which rewards them based on the fact that they resorted to the fact that they can reward the consumer for their demand. So anytime there's a demand for this product, they go out here and entrepreneurs create this supply for the demand that's needed. That's why entrepreneurs are so important, why politicians can only drain or redistribute wealth, okay? So now we go to step 3. And in step 3, we're all going to have abundance and utopia because the technological sector of this centralized course of monopoly is going to produce this unabounding abundance. And all of a sudden, we're going to live in this world where we have no scarcity, and time is not a factor, and there's no crime, and all these other lies that come out, they're spouted by these non-politician politicians. And what I mean by that is the fact that these people rant on politicians all the time, but they themselves are their own form of politicians just outside the political spectrum. They want people to follow them to the death. We're going to go here until we central plan ourselves to prosperity and peace. But the third piece of the puzzle is what they're missing out on. And that is the utopian nirvana society that they claim will come about will never be. And the reason is scarcity can never be eradicated. Abundance is never going to be a factor in our society. Why? Because the only wealth and the products and goods and services we have in our economy are produced by humans, and I'll tell you, or some other machines, but it's backed by some form of a profit structure which shows an incentive system. And until people realize that the incentive system is there, until people realize that entrepreneurs are not all bad, until they realize that the government can do nothing, you're right. And until the people realize that the government can do nothing but redistribute wealth and money through the economy, and they produce nothing at a marginal gain, we will continue on status quo and establishment.
But you know, it's interesting because, you know, what we're seeing with the Venus Project and the Boston Tea Party is the reason why we have a very big problem. You know, this person, Neil Cannon Stevenson, who I've had on my show when I was on Now Live, as a matter of fact, this is a guy who basically claims, you know, he found his way through the Ron Paul revolution, and then he was, you know, sort of in a mixed bag of both Mike Gravel and Ron Paul, and this guy now has become this big disciple, this you know, messenger for Jacques Fresco of the Venus Project. And now I'm wondering, you know, exactly, you know, I'm wondering, because of the stuff that was going on recently, Doug, you believe that Tom Knapp, the founder of the BTP, has been getting pretty cozy with Neil. You think that he's basically that he's been agreeing with Neil on a lot of things, and you traded barbs with Tom on the website. Exactly, what is your analysis of the whole thing, and what do you think?
Well, I was it appeared that way, and I went ahead and poked fun at Tom for it because I was kind of annoyed with the entire situation. So I don't know if it necessarily is that way with Tom and Neil and the caucus or what, or if or maybe not. Maybe Tom just felt like he needed to make a fuss about something, or maybe he's trying to make his last hurrah, as he called it, a big hurrah.
Probably. So you basically now see that, according to the poll, which is what's going on right now, this is interesting because Neil on the website basically believes that I instigated this whole thing and participated in everything you just listed there. I instigated this whole thing. Now he's putting the onus on me. Gee, thanks, Neil. And now that he's saying that it's my fault. But now I'm just wondering, because you spoke of my defense. You said that you don't advocate anyone being removed from the committee. If I were asked to be removed from the committee, I would basically say no. I'm not moving a budge. I'm staying on here, and you're going to have to kick my ass off the committee. And you have to prove that I instigated the whole thing, which Neil doesn't have any proof, any lick of proof, that is. And I'm just kind of curious, what does this say about the Boston Tea Party itself right now? Is the Boston Tea Party in trouble because of the Venus Project, or are we simply overstating the case?
Well, but in a way it is, and it's not necessarily, in a way it is because we have a problem of a lot of our membership not being active enough and not being involved enough, both at the national level and at the state and county levels. More importantly, at the state and county levels, we're not getting enough involvement. What we have here is a group of people coming into the party and who are party outsiders who are coming in to vote on Neil's behalf and joining the party, but not really doing anything except kind of defending Neil. And looking at Neil and his caucus, what have they done? They haven't. Neil didn't accomplish much in his term on the National Committee, and his caucus hasn't really done anything. None of these members participated, including Neil, in convention committees. None of these members participated in anything else with the committee. None of them have authored any resolutions. That none of them contributed to the program creation or bylaws creation or bylaws amendments or anything like that. So they're not helping with any party business. They're basically just seeking to get their people elected to sit on the seat and not do anything. That doesn't help the party at all. And unfortunately, there are enough of them who have joined that they have a pretty good chance to get that vacant seat on the committee and sit there and not do anything with it and hold up committee business.
And you even said to me, in private chat, well, basically on Skype, that is, when I called you about this, you basically have told me in private that Neil was online the entire time when he was on the committee. He just didn't bother to care to vote. He just basically, he claimed that he was going through a divorce, he was going through some personal issues, yada, 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 yada. I mean, we were hearing this all over, and, this is a big problem, I think. You were even stating it simply in your blog post that you've got, national committee members must always think of, the platform in mind, but also must have certain characteristics that are the mark of a national committee member. And Neil doesn't even come close to actually fit that description of a national committee member. Exactly what were you trying to get at?
Well, one of the things that he's done a few times is gone either on the Boston Tea Party site or forums or on other websites online.
Like the Independent Political Report.
Independent Political Report. He likes to go on there and put on comments, or for a while he was a writer there and posted some things too through that. which is a pretty well-read site. I'm not sure if it still gets syndicated on Google News or not, but it did for a long time, so it definitely is a high-traffic site. And he would go on there and criticize party members, including committee members or officers or former officers, and he would also, like to point out, oh, well, look what this person did. Isn't that an embarrassment to the Boston Tea Party and things like that? So almost deliberately trying to embarrass the party and members of it. And that's just, that's fine if you want to do that. I don't care. But, don't expect me to vote for you to be on the national committee and represent us all in that position if that's how you're going to behave.
Right. Tom, did you have a question for Doug?
No, I hadn't thought of it that way. Not really. I haven't really been involved with the Boston Tea Party, which is not any kind of comment on the Boston Tea Party. It's more a matter of my sort of reluctance to ever get involved in politics again. I used to be an LP activist candidate, but I watched that party go to hell, so that's enough.
How about you, Jason? You got any questions or comments for Doug?
Well, actually, I'm learning a lot. I'm actually kind of ignorant of the Boston Tea Party, so I'm learning a lot about it. And it's certainly infinitely better than the LP, it seems.
Right. How about you, Mike? You got any questions for Doug, since you're in the party?
Yeah, actually, I do. I mean, what do you think are the next steps? What do you think needs to happen for the party to progress and to grow and to really bring about the ideal that, shrinking government on all levels? And I'm tired of some of these neocons and the leftists coming in. What do we have to do to really educate people that, a form of anarcho-capitalism or a form of more, literally, let's be honest, the Boston Tea Party and the Libertarian Party correlate heavily. They really do. I mean, there's a reason that I was invited on to the Boston Tea Party, and I'm a member of the executive committee and the political director and the campaign manager for somebody who's running for the Libertarian Party of North Carolina. It's because we have a strong correlation. We agree on many of the same principles. But I'd love to see many third parties grow. What do we need to do to get the Boston Tea Party to really expand, to get these new voters and people interested and to at least spread and make the Boston Tea Party symbol itself a mainstream or a household item?
That's a good question, Mike. The main thing we need to do right now is re-engage our members. We have about 1,500 members, most of whom are just not very active in the party, whether it's with national business or state or local business. And the most important thing we need those members to do is get involved at the state level or the county level. Start a state affiliate or a county affiliate, or just work to expand their affiliates, recruit new members, track down some people to run for office or endorse some candidates who are already running, and get out and campaign for them, build the party membership at that grassroots level and awareness at that grassroots level. Another thing that we need to do is reach out to other people who are libertarians or anarchists or whatever else within this area of politics, and get them involved in the party, because there are a lot of them out there who either aren't very interested in politics despite their beliefs, or they're not sure that politics is the correct route to reach their goals. So we need to show that to some of those people who are not yet members. And the third thing is something that we're working on right now, is starting a policy institute based on the Boston Party's platform.
Yeah, the Lyceum Institute.
Mm-hmm. And the Spooner Institute, we've just started it. We've written a mission statement, started a blog, which is spoonerinstitute.blogspot.com. That's spoonerinstitute.blogspot.com. And we've put a couple posts up there on the blog. We're pursuing 501c3 nonprofit status and full incorporation as a nonprofit, so that we can raise funds and build a substantial institute to back the party and its candidates with policy statements that are research-based,
Right.
and we can also use that to reach out in all sorts of media to getting the libertarian message out to more people in the mainstream media and other places that other channels that we haven't reached yet with our message.
I do want to play something that Neil said on his show a while back. And Neil said something that I think people should be aware of. He basically did a podcast here. He does a podcast here on Blog Talk Radio called V Radio. And this is dated June 7th, by the way, which was a couple of weeks back. And this is a guy who basically said some very not so good things about, some people in the Boston Tea Party, but I think it needs to be aired. This is what he said on his show and didn't get even that much attention. Listen to this.
Now, there's an update here, and I'm going to update the update. But update, the National Committee of the Boston Tea Party, in an effort to block people from our caucus from having a chance to occupy the final committee seat, had decided to simply not to hold an election for it. They do this in spite of the fact that I have voiced interest in that position, which is when they're supposed to do so. And they openly admit that they do this to prevent me from being able to go for the position. As obvious and ironic this political corruption is, it actually bodes well for us. Now more than ever, I need the help of members of the United States Zeitgeist Movement to get behind this effort. You can support the petition to overturn this unethical action by the National Committee by saying you support it here. Link is given in the blog post. When we have enough support for this petition, it will come before a vote of the membership to overturn the committee's decision. Then we will vote again and send a message to the committee. So basically, I'm going to look over at the chat room now. Basically, all you really need to do is be a United States citizen, join the party, and then go on accordingly. They went ahead and started the poll, and there's only a few votes on it now, but they went ahead and disabled new membership again. If this continues to be a problem, then I'm just going to put together another petition that only needs 5 people to approve of it, and then the petition goes before the vote. So at this point, he's just trying to shut off new membership for the purpose of preventing us from joining again. This guy has had it in for my caucus from the very beginning, and he calls us all kinds of crap when he does it. But the fact that he has to go through all of this to stop us actually says a lot for us. So, yeah, that's basically it. They did that on purpose, I'm sure. But in the meantime, basically what's going to happen here is he's going to open his poll. He did it right away to make sure that I couldn't get more people to join in support of the caucus. If we lose this one, then we can just do it again. There's no limit in the bylaws to how many times. Now, the person I have to credit for doing this, ironically, is not somebody who's my friend at all. Tom Knapp and I had a huge falling out, but he is a mainstream libertarian, and he saw that they were just leaving a committee spot open just because. That's basically what it amounted to. The exchange in this situation was so stupid, but basically they got the results they wanted by invalidating a bunch of votes in the middle of the election by turning off new membership, and then they decided anybody who had joined after the convention had started that they wouldn't count their votes. So despite the fact that we won overwhelmingly, they basically just invalidated those votes based on an unwritten rule that was used as a previous precedent because they had somebody, I guess, who was making multiple accounts just to vote none of the above on everything.
All right. So, Doug, what do you say to that?
Well, the thing that bothered me most was Neil was making it out as if Daryl Perry, our new chair of the Boston Tea Party, has it out for him and for his caucus, and that's not even remotely true. I've never even heard Daryl comment on the caucus or the Venus Project or anything like that. Daryl has never really gotten into that whole mess at all. He's never even stated opinions about it. He hasn't really he's been indifferent about the entire thing and has basically ignored Neil and the Resource-Based Economy Caucus throughout. He's just ignored them. So I don't understand why Neil's acting as if, well, I do understand why, but I guess I'm frustrated that Neil is making those accusations at Daryl when they're just completely false. And the reason why he's doing it is because he's trying to get those people to be mad and to feel like they're being cheated so that they go on there and support what he's trying to do, because he just wants to get himself back into office. He's really upset that he got voted out of office in the convention, and he's just trying to get himself back in there. And he'll do whatever it takes. If that means lying about Daryl Perry and making it seem like Daryl Perry's out to get him when that's not even remotely true, then that's what he'll do.
Right. Any thoughts on this, Jason, Tom, Mike?
Who you want to start? Go ahead.
Well, from my point of view, it makes me the opposite of nostalgic for my time in the LP. It sounds familiar. I mean, the sort of infighting and jockeying for position, and it's really a depressing thing about politics. I don't know that it's peculiar to libertarian politics. I think it's just the way politics is, period. And it's people out to grab as much self-glorification as they can get.
How about you, Jason? What do you think?
I absolutely second what Tom just said.
It's sad, and I know there are people involved in politics who aren't like that. I'm sure Doug isn't like that. I know Mike isn't like that. But there are always people like that, and a really good percentage contingent, too.
Right. Mike, what did you think when you heard all that?
I mean, I agree with everybody's saying here. You know, it just comes down to the fact of what do you believe in? I mean, what at the end of the night, when you sleep at night, when you look in the mirror, are you really fulfilled with what you're doing in life? And if not so, what are you doing? And here's the question I pose to everybody, okay? The next time you think about a political policy or you ask anything about, us creating a new law or imposing some kind of new restriction or mandate or ration system on somebody, ask the simple question, can they do it on their own? And then the next question you say is, why do I need to impose violence on them? And then once you ask those two questions, you'll realize the third and final response, which is, if I do allow this vote for some person to go over another, don't I realize the simple fact that it'll be corrupted? And that's what most people don't simply understand. The simple fact that, first of all, just stealing from a person outright is wrong. And no matter if it's you or if you gather up 30 people or whether you gather up 300 million people, it doesn't make a difference. Either way, you're stealing. And theft is theft and it's morally wrong. And if you don't realize that, that'll lead to corruption, that this power and this force and this violence will lead to future corruption. No matter who's in charge, you're only going to create more problems for the future and the future. I mean, look at what debt has done to our society, okay? Not alone. I mean, we can take coercion, which is the root of the problem here. But let's look at a symptom, just one simple symptom of statism, and that's the debt. What's happened? It is future slavery on grandchildren. It is making them pay for what we do today. And if anybody can stare me in the eye and say that that's a moral, justifiable cause, I would love to see that, because I've yet to come across somebody who could stare me in the eyes and say it's not slavery.
Right. Doug, before you go here, I know you have to get going here, but I just wanted to ask you one final question here, and I think this is a very poignant yet paramount question that I think you should think about and also answer, but I think everybody should think about this question. Who's involved in third-party politics, and not just the Boston Tea Party. But in this case, we are talking about the Boston Tea Party. What do you think will be the outcome of the Boston Tea Party? Do you think it's going to last? And also, I guess a bonus question to squeeze in there would be, Who do you think is going to win? Do you think either you or Mike are going to win, or do you think Neil's going to kick ass and he's going to be the victor and be on the committee? But we'll start with the first one. Go for it.
Well, I wish I could just answer yes or no to those. Preferably yes. That the party will continue and grow, and that we'll win this election here as well. But it really is out of my hands, and I can't tell what other people are going to do. It's just going to depend on what the membership does, and if the people who join the party, if the members who support this platform are going to stand behind it with their actions and get on and vote, and if they're going to work through their state affiliates and establish county affiliates to grow the party. So it's just going to depend on whether or not the people who believe in the platform actually stand by it and do something about it.
Right. Well, Doug, I want to thank you for being on the air with us tonight. You've been a great trooper. Stick around if you can to listen to the rest of the show. You're a great trooper. You're a great person in this party. You've actually have been a very good friend of mine. Thank you so much. Take it easy, and well, I'd love to have you back on the show here sometime, if not next seasons of the regular LCTL. Take it easy, my friend.
Thank you.